Hey guys, it's Angela, and I am going to talk to you a little bit today about alignment. We're going to go through that alignment drill. Really important alignment. The more you practice it consciously, the more you'll become aware unconsciously and get better at what we call our kinesthetic sense of knowing where our bodies are in space without thinking about them. So you're not just going to think about your alignment when you're running or when you're lifting, but if you work on it as an exercise consciously, just like anything else, you become a little more aware, get better at it. So I'm going to jump right in, and you are going to stand with your feet hip distance apart. And by that, I mean your heels will line up with the middle of your back pockets, or if you're a yoga person, line up with your sitting bones. So it's not way out here at the sides of your pelvis, the center of the axis of your hip joint. It's the center of your hips, center of your back pockets, or your sitting bones. You stay where you are. I'm going to turn sideways for you. So, in that position, that starting position, you're just going to shift your weight towards the ball of your foot and towards the heel of your foot. Without lifting the toes or the heels, just find out how far can you go. There's a range of where you could be. Some of you might find that you're more comfortable towards the ball of your feet or towards the heels. Where we'd like to be is with weight 50-50, equal on heel and ball of foot. If you start watching people when you're sitting out and about standing, you'll notice I call the folks who stand forward, they're like the downhill skiers. And there are some folks who tend to stand way back here like they're water skiing. I actually can't do that very well. But just start to notice what other people do. Start to notice where you tend to be. If you check in with yourself while you're doing dishes, is the weight all forward on the ball of your foot? Are you way back on your heels? Just start to notice, become aware. You don't have to change anything, just start to notice for now. Then you're going to bring your hands up to the widest part of your hips, and you're going to rotate your thigh bones in and then straight ahead. It's not a very big movement, rotating your thigh bones in and then straight ahead. It comes from way up here at the hip joint. Rotate in and then straight ahead. The thigh bones are rotating in at the hip socket and then coming straight ahead. As you rotate your thigh bones in, your kneecaps will start to look towards each other just a little bit. And then the kneecaps come straight ahead. Rotate the thigh bones in, the kneecaps look towards each other, and then the kneecaps look straight ahead. If you bring your awareness down to your feet, as you rotate your thigh bones and kneecaps look at each other, your arches will drop. As you bring your kneecaps straight ahead, the arches will lift a little bit. Rotate your thigh bones in, arches drop. Rotate your thigh bones and kneecaps straight ahead, the arches lift just a little. Where we want the kneecaps is pointing straight ahead. So if you have really flat feet, low arches, sometimes it's because you have really flat feet, low arches, and sometimes it could be because of what's going on at your hip joints if your hips aren't strong. So just know that can be a factor. So we've got our weight equal heel and ball of foot, kneecaps straight ahead. You're going to place one hand on your pubic bone, one hand on your tailbone, and then you're going to tuck your tail underneath you and lift your tail. If you were lying on your back, this would be a pelvic tilt forward and backward. As I tuck my tail, my spine flexes. As I lift my tail, my back arches. There's, again, a range of where you could be. If your hamstrings and hip flexors are really tight, you might need to bend your knees a little, and that'll free up a little more motion because those muscles attach to the pelvis, and they'll limit the freedom of motion here. Where we would like to be is if our pelvis were a bowl of soup and lifting our pubic bone, dropping our tailbone, we're pouring our soup out behind us. And tipping our pelvis forward is pouring our soup out in front of us, so pubic bone drops, tailbone lifts. We want to find a place where we're not spilling our soup anywhere. And then you're going to straighten your knees. So this is a work in progress. You're not going to be perfect in one day. If you tend to be really tipped forward, it's going to be hard to get to the middle. You're not going to be able to get all the way there without crouching and bending your knees. We don't want that. So find a happy medium, more towards not spilling your soup. If you're a butt tucker, you'll find that your bum's tucked under you, your back's kind of flat. Getting forward, you might not have a lot of freedom there. So just get forward a little bit more so you're not spilling your soup anywhere, and then straighten the knees. So the heels and the soles of the feet reach into the floor, weight even, kneecap straight ahead. We're not spilling our soup anywhere. And then we're going to bring our hands up to our rib cage. So if you bring your hands just about at your bra strap, if that works for your shoulders, if not, just leave your hands on your hips. But if your shoulders are comfortable with this, you're going to slide your rib cage over to one side and then the other without moving your hips or your pelvis. So no other part of you is moving. We're just gliding the rib cage side to side, kind of like a typewriter, if any of you remember what that is. You might find that you don't have very much movement. It's not a big movement. You might find you can glide far more to one side than to the other. You might find it feels a little hitchy or uncomfortable to one side or the other. Just keep it comfortable, go as far as you can. If you've got little ones at home that you spend a lot of time carrying them, jutting one hip out, you'll slide your rib cage over, make a nice little shelf for them to rest on. You'll find that you have a lot more movement to one side than the other. We just want to balance the rib cage back up over the pelvis. So sometimes we get stuck, shifted off to the side, and we just need to bring it back to midline. Your body sort of forgets what midline is, so you need to remember. This next one's a little tricky. You're going to think about your rib cage like a bell. So the top is narrower, the bottom is a broader, round base, right? Your rib cage is in 3 dimensions, just like a bell. So just picture my rib cage like a bell here. And I'm going to ring my bell. I'm going to lift the bottom front of my rib cage, and the back is going to drop. I'm going to drop the front, and the back is going to lift. I lift the front, the back drops. I drop the front, and the back lifts. There's a range of where I could be. So some of us, in an effort to get up tall, because we're really tight in the front of the chest, will lift the bottom of the rib cage way up, kind of thrusting the ribs forward. And some folks trying, especially if you have like a big bust, a lot of folks will drop the front of their rib cage and end up more hunched over. You would like to end up with that circle on the bottom of your rib cage. Imagine that stacked just above the bowl of your pelvis, right? So we're not spilling our soup. We're going to stack our rib cage right over top. That will make a lot of folks feel, it might make you feel like you're really rounded forward and hunched forward here because we're so tight. So you're going to lift your breastbone slightly, not so far that you pop the bottom of the rib cage up. Lift the breastbone slightly, leaving the rib cage connected to the pelvis. Shrug your shoulders up, bring them back, slide them down on top of your body. And then your head is like the cherry on top. You want to slide your head back as best you can so that it's stacked over your rib cage. Your chin and your gaze is level. So a lot of folks are really tight head forward, and to do that, they end up tipping the chin up. That's not what we want. That will make your neck feel terrible. And you might find that that is what you do sometimes. So you're going to slide your head back as best you can to get your head over your shoulders, back of the neck long, chin level, gaze level. Okay, we're going to shake it out. We're going to do that again really quickly, moving through it a little more quickly. Once you practice this, you'll be able to do it in 30 seconds. And when you practice it a little bit more, you'll be able to do it. You'll know right away when you're in good alignment. So heels line up with the middle of your back pockets. Shift the weight towards your ball of your foot and then towards your heel. There's a range of where you could be. Where we would like to be is weight equal on heel and ball of foot. We'll rotate, thigh bones in, kneecaps look at each other, arches drop. Kneecaps straight ahead. Rotate thigh bones in, kneecaps look at each other, arches drop. Kneecaps straight ahead, arches lift slightly. We want the kneecaps pointing straight ahead. One hand on pubic bone, one hand on tailbone. You're going to tuck your tail underneath you and then lift your tail. If you feel like you can't move at all, bend your knees a little bit. You'll free up a little more motion in the pelvis. So as we tip the pelvis forward, we're pouring the soup out, arching the low back. As we pour our soup out behind us, tuck the tail, spine flexes. So drop the pubic bone, lift the tailbone, drop the tailbone, lift the pubic bone. We're going to find a place where we're not spilling our soup anywhere. Straighten the knees. Remember, it's a work in progress. So if you can't get all the way to that neutral position without and then straighten your knees, then go somewhere in the middle, a little more optimal than where you were, but maybe not perfect yet. And there really is no perfect. Okay, hands to rib cage. Slide your ribs to the right and then to the left, leaving your hips and pelvis stable. We're going to find a position where our rib cage is stacked over the pelvis. Then you're going to ring your rib cage like a bell. Lift the bottom front of your rib cage, the back drops. Drop the front of your rib cage, the back lifts. Lift the front of your rib cage, the back drops. Drop the front of your rib cage, the back lifts. We want to end up with rib cage stacked over pelvis. So imagine that opening on the bottom of your bell, stacking directly over the top of your bowl of soup. Then we're going to shrug or lift the breastbone slightly without popping up the rib cage. Shrug the shoulders up and back, slide them down your back. And the last thing, slide your head back so that it sits over your shoulders. Gaze is level, chin is level. So start with that. The more you practice it, honestly, the more quickly you'll be able to go through it, and you will be able to know right away when you're in good static standing alignment. Again, this is a starting point. We've got to be able to take the alignment with us for walking, running, lunging, bending, twisting, lifting. But this is a great starting point. Let me know how it goes, and good luck.